The atmosphere in the studio was electric tension crackling in the air like static before a storm. Everyone had expected a lively conversation, a playful debate between the host and the celebrity guest, but no one could have predicted how quickly smiles would vanish, replaced by frowns and sharp words. The cameras rolling captured every flicker of emotion, every raised eyebrow, and every subtle shift in body language as the conversation took a sudden and unexpected turn. The audience leaned forward, sensing the change from cordial banter to something far more intense. The celebrity guest, who had arrived with a confident stride, suddenly paused, their voice taking on a firmer edge and their eyes narrowing as if ready to defend a deeply held conviction. The host, who had started with casual questions, felt a flicker of uncertainty as they realized the discussion was veering into territory neither had prepared for, and the production crew behind the cameras exchanged glances, quietly wondering how long they could maintain control as tension mounted like a pressure cooker ready to explode, leaving everyone in the studio, including the audience at home, on the edge of their seats, anticipating what would happen next. The conversation that had started with light-hearted jokes and easy smiles had now escalated into a tense exchange, each word carefully measured yet laced with underlying frustration. The celebrity guest leaned forward, their hands gripping the edge of the table as they articulated their point with increasing intensity, while the host shifted in their seat, searching for the right response, trying to maintain authority and composure yet visibly rattled. The audience could feel the energy shifting, their collective breath held as if suspended in anticipation. The cameras captured every micro-expression, every twitch of a hand, every tightening of a jaw as the dialogue became sharper, more confrontational, and the words themselves seemed to hang in the air, charged with emotion, neither side willing to back down. The studio lights glared harshly, illuminating faces that now reflected anger, confusion, and disbelief. The sound of murmured reactions rippled through the crowd, and somewhere in the background the production team scrambled to monitor the feeds to ensure nothing spiraled completely out of control, while viewers at home sensed that they were witnessing a moment that would be talked about long after the cameras stopped rolling. A turning point in what had promised to be an ordinary interview had transformed into a high-stakes battle of wills filled with drama, intensity, and unpredictable outcomes. As the argument intensified, the room seemed to shrink around the two figures locked in this escalating confrontation, every sentence exchanged like a spark threatening to ignite a fire. The celebrity guest's voice rose slightly, carrying a mixture of indignation and defiance, while the host's responses became brisker, sharper, tinged with frustration and incredulity. The audience watched in stunned silence, some leaning forward, others with hands over mouths, uncertain whether to gasp, cheer, or intervene. The tension was palpable, like static electricity ready to discharge, and even the camera operators moved cautiously, trying not to intrude, yet capturing every charged gesture, every subtle glance that betrayed the underlying emotions simmering just beneath the surface. Backstage, the producers whispered urgently, debating whether to cut to commercial or let the drama unfold for ratings. The lights overhead seemed to intensify the pressure, casting stark shadows across faces, making every frown, every tightening of lips appear monumental, as if the room itself had become a pressure chamber for conflict. Every heartbeat seemed amplified, the ticking of the clock louder as the exchange escalated, each party unwilling to yield, fueling a spectacle that no one in the studio or at home could ignore. A volatile collision of personalities, raw emotion and unfiltered truth, all playing out live on camera. The tension in the studio had reached a boiling point, neither the host nor the celebrity guest willing to give an inch, each word now loaded with accusation and counter-argument reverberating through the room like a drumbeat. The audience sat frozen, their eyes darting between the two figures, trying to process the rapid escalation of emotions. Whispers rippled through the crowd, speculation and shock mixing as the cameras captured every subtle movement, every shift in posture, every glance that betrayed hidden frustration or simmering anger. The host's face hardened, their tone sharper than before, attempting to regain control of the narrative, while the guest leaned back, momentarily gathering composure, only to launch another pointed retort. The air felt thick, almost suffocating, as the clash continued unchecked. Lights glared harshly down, casting dramatic shadows across the set, enhancing the sense of confrontation, and every crew member behind the cameras felt the weight of the unfolding spectacle, wondering whether to intervene or let the moment play out for the sake of television ratings. The exchange had transformed from casual conversation to an intense battle of wills, charged with personal stakes and public scrutiny, leaving everyone in the studio and watching at home captivated, riveted, and on edge, anticipating the next explosive turn. In this unpredictable confrontation, neither the host nor the celebrity guest showed any sign of yielding, the tension between them crackling like a live wire with every word exchanged. The conversation conversation had spiraled far beyond its original purpose, evolving into a confrontation filled with veiled insults and pointed challenges. The audience remained silent yet completely absorbed, their collective gaze fixed on the two figures as if drawn into a magnetized storm of emotion. The cameras moved deliberately, capturing each moment from multiple angles. The host leaned forward, their hands gesturing sharply while their voice carried a mixture of disbelief and controlled frustration. The guest's expression hardened, their posture rigid yet defiant, every sentence delivered with precision and intensity, creating a palpable electricity in the room. Backstage, the producers whispered urgently, debating whether to intervene. The studio lights highlighted every crease of concern, every twitch of irritation, casting dramatic shadows across the set, amplifying the visual tension and making every glance, every movement more intense. The air itself seemed charged with anticipation, as if the room were holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable climax of this volatile exchange, leaving the viewers at home glued to their screens, caught between fascination, shock, and curiosity, unable to look away from the high-stakes drama unfolding live before their eyes. The confrontation showed no signs of abating, each side digging in deeper, refusing to concede any ground, their words sharp and deliberate like finely honed blades slicing through the charged atmosphere. The audience shifted uneasily, some leaning forward in anticipation, others recoiling slightly at the intensity of the verbal sparring. The cameras captured every subtle nuance, every tightening of a jaw, every flare of a nostril, every twitch of a hand. The host's voice rose with controlled exasperation, delivering pointed questions that cut to the heart of the matter, while the celebrity guest responded with equal fervor, their tone edged with indignation and undeniable emotion. The studio lights intensified the drama, casting long shadows and highlighting every micro-expression, making the tension visually palpable. Even the crew behind the cameras could feel the heat, the air thick with anticipation as whispers of concern mixed with excitement circulated the room, each moment stretching longer than the last, as if time itself had slowed to watch the unfolding clash, a high-stakes chess match of wit, defiance, and raw emotion, leaving everyone present and at home suspended in the grip of an unforgettable live television spectacle that none could predict how it would resolve. The energy in the studio had reached a fever pitch, every word and gesture loaded with intensity and consequence. The conversation had evolved into a fierce battle of wills, with neither the host nor the celebrity guest willing to compromise. The audience was transfixed, leaning forward with bated breath, caught between astonishment and curiosity, unable to look away. The cameras moved deliberately, capturing every micro-expression, every subtle flicker of emotion, every tightening of a fist or narrowing of eyes. The host's tone became increasingly firm, their questions sharp and incisive, demanding answers, while the guest countered with equal determination, their voice resonating with defiance and controlled anger. The lights above the set glared down, creating stark contrasts of shadow and illumination, emphasizing every line of tension across faces and bodies. Backstage, the production team whispered frantically, debating whether to intervene or allow the confrontation to play out live. The atmosphere was charged like static electricity on the verge of discharge, every heartbeat amplified, every pause pregnant with anticipation. The air seemed to thrum with unresolved conflict as the clash continued to unfold in real time, a dramatic spectacle of personality, pride, and unfiltered emotion, holding the audience captive and leaving them acutely aware that history was being made in the studio that day. The intensity in the studio continued to escalate, each exchange between the host and the celebrity guest sharper and more pointed than the last. The audience sat in rapt attention, caught between shock and fascination, unable to look away from the verbal sparring unfolding live before them. Every gesture, every glance captured by the cameras conveyed layers of emotion. The host leaned forward, their expression taut, their voice carrying a mix of incredulity and determination, pressing for answers. The guest's posture remained rigid yet commanding, their words deliberate and forceful, each sentence a carefully measured strike. The lighting amplified the drama, casting deep shadows that accentuated the tension on the set, while backstage the producers exchanged urgent whispers, debating whether to cut to commercial or let the storm rage on. The air itself felt heavy, charged with energy, as if the studio had become a crucible for confrontation. The audience's collective heartbeat seemed synchronized with the cadence of the argument, and every subtle movement, every flicker of expression heightened the sense that the situation was teetering on the edge of chaos, leaving viewers both in the room and at home mesmerized, riveted, and acutely aware that nothing could prepare them for what might happen next. In this high-stakes collision of personalities and raw emotion, the confrontation showed no signs of slowing, each side digging in with unyielding resolve, the host's questions now sharp and relentless, pressing the celebrity guest on every point, while the guest responded with pointed rebuttals, their tone a mix of indignation and steely defiance. The audience remained glued to their seats, some leaning forward, others exchanging whispered comments, their eyes wide with astonishment at the intensity of the exchange. The cameras moved carefully, capturing every flicker of emotion, every subtle shift in posture, every micro-expression. The studio lights cast Dramatic shadows highlighting the tension etched on faces and the rigid lines of body language backstage. The production team whispered, urgently debating whether to intervene or let the drama continue unfolding in real time. The air seemed thick with anticipation, each pause pregnant with potential escalation, every heartbeat amplified as if the room itself were holding its breath, waiting for the inevitable climax. The conversation had transformed into a high-stakes duel of wit and emotion, a live spectacle of human tension and pride that left everyone in the studio and watching at home completely captivated, unable to look away from the volatile clash playing out before their eyes. The room had reached a breaking point, the host and the celebrity guest locked in a tense standoff, their words sharp, deliberate and charged with emotion. The audience sat frozen, captivated by the unfolding drama, every eye fixed on the stage, some leaning forward, others covering their mouths in disbelief. The cameras captured every subtle gesture, every tightening of a jaw, every fleeting expression. As the intensity grew, the host's voice carried authority and exasperation, pressing for answers while the guest countered with controlled defiance and pointed retorts. The studio lights amplified the tension, casting dramatic shadows and emphasizing the strained expressions on every face. Backstage, the production team whispered, urgently debating whether to cut to commercial or let the confrontation play out live. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, the air itself seemed electric, every pause loaded with potential escalation, every movement magnified as if under a microscope. The exchange had evolved from casual conversation to an explosive clash of personalities, pride and raw emotion, creating a spectacle that held the audience captive and left viewers at home riveted, knowing they were witnessing a defining moment of live television that would be talked about long after the cameras stopped rolling.